Hey everybody, we're talking here with Ryan Munsey. Ryan is an absolute legend. He's responsible for getting us with Sean Baker last time, and it's so cool to be able to follow that up with the man himself. Ryan, what did you get up to on the weekend, bro?
What did I do this past weekend? Man, I can't even remember. I got to think about this. Um, let's see. So I'm a member of a co-working space here in Virginia Beach, and spent Saturday morning there with a friend of mine, Rick Alexander, who is a fellow writer and podcaster. I can actually make an introduction for you with him if you'd like to have him on your show. But his show is Lionheart Radio. I think you guys would hit it off pretty well. So we just chatted for a few hours, had some coffee, got a workout in, came home. Wife and I hung out. We went and saw a movie, had date night, and then Sunday just rested up, took it easy, did some food prep for the week, and that's about it, man. Pretty low key.
Nice, man. That sounds like a pretty awesome balance. Contacting with people of like-mindedness, spending time with a loved one, and then preparing for the week.
Yep.
Is that a constant thing? Being prepared for the week. You look to be a pretty busy guy, and it must be great having that ready to go.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those guys who, I'm very vigilant about how I spend my time and how my schedule is set up. And, it's one of those things that if we're not looking at that in advance and setting it up for success for ourselves, it's not going to happen on its own. So I'm a big believer in, time management and setting things up in a way that facilitates the results that you're looking to get.
That's awesome, mate. So you're a former fitness model, and you used to be the owner of a performance facility. Who's Ryan Munsey today, mate?
Man, well, I'm definitely not a fitness model. I can tell you that. That was an interesting experience, and I tell people all the time that one of the reasons that I pursued that was it was when I graduated college. I had the option to either do that or do an internship and become a registered dietitian. And in college, I I took all of the, half of my curriculum was science based. The other half was the nutrition core courses. And, unfortunately, what we're taught in the nutrition side was funded by big food, big pharma, all the things that we're trying to fight. And the recommendations for, how to teach people to eat didn't really match what I was learning in the science side of things. So I really didn't want to pay to do an internship to then be a part of this orthodoxy that I really didn't believe in. And the other alternative was to go to New York City and get paid to lift weights and try to look good. And I thought that that would help me build a platform where I could have a voice and then educate people on the things that I was learning myself. So it was never really hey, I want to be a model. It was, I enjoy lifting weights and I might be able to get paid to do it. And in the process, build this platform from which I can educate and help people. It turned out to not necessarily be that way, but I think I am still a person. I know I'm still a person who, very much enjoys learning and educating myself, but then also sharing that information with others in a way that can help people live stronger, healthier, happier lives. And I've been fortunate enough to do that as a personal trainer, and then that evolved into owning my own facility. And then from there, it was the old podcast that I was hosting, the OPP, working with natural stacks, and then moving on from there to what we're doing now with the Better Human Project and the book. So who am I now is, I guess, just yeah, I'm the 2018 version of myself, just trying to learn as much as I can about the human body, the human experience, life, and sharing it with amazing people doing amazing things, and trying to help as many people along the way as possible.
That's awesome, mate. You touched on two things there about dietetics, and that was belief in orthodoxy, and something that's just been highlighted to me over the last probably few months is the fact that, especially in the Dietetics Association, it is to do with belief in orthodoxy, and a lot of the ideas comes from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I always wondered where this sort of reverence from vegetarian and veganism come from, and that's a massive factor. Was it something that you ever noticed that meat wasn't really talked about in the dietetics curriculum, or how meat can be bad, or have you been highlighted to that now?
Well, in my education, it wasn't meat that turned me off from what the orthodoxy was teaching, as much as it was just the general all foods fit. There was no bad mouthing of meat in my education. It was just anything in moderation, and all foods fit. And if you want to drink a Pepsi, that's fine. Like, for example, the recommended diet when I was going through school, carbohydrates. And then, we had one class that was called medical nutrition therapy, and you're taught how to plan a diet for people with certain, nutrition disease states, whether it be celiac or, Crohn's, things like that. And for the diabetics, the recommendation was to, we learned how to do the dietary exchanges and things like that. And the recommendation was to take the carbohydrate intake from 60% of their total calories down to 50% of their total calories. So you're telling me that a nutritional intervention for somebody who doesn't handle carbohydrates well is to still prescribe that half of their calories come from the thing that they don't tolerate well? It made zero sense to me. This idea that, we know high fructose corn syrup is not something that we should be ingesting. And, to have a teacher up there in a program saying, like, these things are okay, and, we can find a way to make them work. And I just didn't, I don't buy it. I don't believe that. I didn't want to be a part of that.
Absolutely.
So it really had nothing to do with meat or anything like that at that point. It was just more of the, you could tell that everything was funded by, the big agri that, runs the United States. And I'm not sure how it is globally, but I'm sure it's pretty similar.
Yeah, no, it still pops up, and you just need to go into hospitals and see what's on the menu. It blows your mind a little bit when you take a step back and look at how is this inverted commas healthy. You spoke about the Optimal Performance podcast. What was really the driver for that, and why have you sort of wrapped that up for now?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity early 2015. I was wrapping up doing a podcast for my gym. And, when I had my facility, it was called House of Strength. And, I really loved the idea of being a podcaster and being able to interview, the smartest people that I could find, learn from them, and then put that out as content to help other people at the same time. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of work, and it's almost a full-time job in itself, as you know. And when I was trying to do that for the gym, the podcast wasn't monetized. And as a gym owner, it took me away from the high value activities that I needed to be doing to move that mission forward. So I realized that despite the fact that I wanted to be a podcaster, I needed to keep my attention on the gym. And as I decided to move away from that, I had the opportunity from Natural Stacks to, they asked me if I wanted to host their podcast, the OPP. And, they said, we'll pay you to do it. And I said, all right, well, that's exactly what I was looking for. And, now I get to do what I wanted to do. And I had some revenue coming in from it, which, made it worthwhile. It was an incredible opportunity and a lot of great experiences. But, now, with the book coming out and, things going in the direction that, I'm moving, it just made sense to, separate from Natural Stacks and, be able to do my own thing. And, when I promote the book and, then it's my following, it's my thing. I mean, the book is completely separate from Natural Stacks. So, it just made sense to separate and make things, separate entities.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So based off of your Instagram bio, you're helping athletes and entrepreneurs optimize mind and body for a greater impact. There's so much in there, just in that statement. Mind, of course, if you're not tapping into it, then you're missing a lot. And then I like it that your focus of it is to create greater impact. How does that firstly follow in your life, and then what do your sort of people that you're mentoring get back from that? What have you noticed?
Yeah, I think the idea of being able to make an impact it's sort of the next step in the evolution of our health and fitness pursuits, right? Like we've been talking about, I come from a nutrition background and a gym background. At some point, I realized that I had to do more with my own life than bench press or squat a certain amount or have a certain body fat. If I get to the end of my life and the most positive thing that someone can say about me is, oh, he squatted X number of pounds or kilos, or, he had X body fat percentage, then yeah, I didn't really life of service. I didn't really do anything to leave a legacy or contribute to my community or to the rest of humanity. So I think I started to have that evolution around 2012, and it was right about the time I was starting my own gym. And for me, it is, I don't eat a certain diet to just say, it's about the diet. It is, how does that diet facilitate the rest of my life? Same thing with fitness for me now. It's not, I don't live for the workout or live for the gym. I do that stuff to, promote longevity and put my mental health, my physical health in a place that facilitates what I'm trying to do outside of the kitchen, outside of the gym, so that I can enhance the rest of my life. And that's the people who think like that are the people that I resonate with as a coach or as a mentor or whatever it may be. And the people that I get to consult with and coach are people who are special forces operators or former Olympians or people who are conquering big goals. C-level executives who are looking to optimize those aspects of their life so that they can then in turn show up in their relationships, in their business, in their entrepreneurial pursuits the way they want to, so that they can build a business that provides jobs for other people, and then they can educate their own employees and help those people change their lives, or invest in businesses that change lives, or there's just a lot of different ways that these people are making the world a better place through what they do. And my role is to just help them be the best version of themselves that they can be, so that they can show up and move through the world the way they want to.
Fantastic. Now, you said 2012, and probably the last sort of 3-4 years for me, I've noticed, and I know it's something Joe Rogan talks about, frontal cortex comes in when you're a bloke about 25, but I've noticed that you start to try and build on what you have a meaning out of life. How old were you at 2012, and have you found that there was sort of a switch and you've started to blossom in your thinking?
Yeah, I think there definitely was a switch. There were a lot of factors that came into play in 2012. When I started to sort of shift my focus and what my priorities were. I guess I would have been 2012. That was 5 years ago. I would have been 28, 29, somewhere in that range. I don't even know anymore, man. I was born in 1984, so somebody can do the math on that. And like I said, I had been at that point, I'd been a personal trainer for about 3 or 4 years, and I was starting my own facility. So I was making that switch from, okay, I'm no longer a personal trainer or a strength coach. I'm now a business owner. I've got to learn how to manage cash, manage people, do marketing. I was learning psychology for marketing purposes. And, I'm writing blog posts, not because I have something to say, but because these things need to be targeted and trying to promote the message of our gym and get people in the gym. And, I really started to when you're a personal trainer, you may have a client base of 10, 20, 30 people. When you own a facility like that, our membership was 100, 150. So, the sample size and the population that I got to work with was much larger. I got to see a broader range of fears and doubts and goals. And, I had mentors both on a personal level and in a business development level. So there were just so many different things that kind of all came together at the same time to sort of help me, shift my focus, my priorities, and sort of develop as a human in a way that I had not yet.
I love it that you touched on fear there. What do you do to knock down a fear, or how do you assess an existing belief when you're trying to attack something new? Like, writing a book must have been a hell of an undertaking, and there would have been a lot of doubts in your own mind. What are some of your little skills to combat fear and stay in a place of power?
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful habits that we can build for ourselves is this idea of doing something that makes you uncomfortable every single day. And the more we do that, the more we inoculate ourselves to adversity or fear or anxiety. We talk about this in the book, actually, or I talk about it in the book, but there is a difference between fear and anxiety. Fear is the actual presence of a threat. Anxiety is the threat itself is not there, but you are worried that it is there. So if we're walking down a path in the woods and there's a snake, that's fear. If you're walking down that same path in the woods and you're afraid that you might see a snake, that's not fear, that's anxiety. You're thinking about the threat of that thing being there, but it's not actually there. So I think understanding those is an important thing for everyone who's trying to optimize their mind and, kind of direct their lives. And again, that's something that I touch on in the book and kind of explain a little bit deeper. But with this practice of doing something that makes you uncomfortable every day, not only will you inoculate yourself to that fear, if you will, or that act of doing something uncomfortable, but through that practice, you will also bring more and more things into your comfort zone. You will develop skills, you will develop habits, you will learn things that now help you grow and evolve as a human, because what once was outside your comfort zone is now inside your comfort zone. And by definition, that is expanding your comfort zone. You are becoming a more well-rounded human. So I think that is a very tangible and actionable tip to, begin to be someone who others may see as fearless. It doesn't mean that you're not afraid of those things. It just means that you have learned to kind of do them anyway. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is that, a lot of people will look at others and say, oh, well, that person's fearless, or, I would be afraid to do that. Well, most people are, they just do it anyway. So that's kind of your choice. Do you want to let that fear stop you, or, are you going to do what you really want to do?
It's an absolute gem, man. So Ryan Munsey is a 5-year-old. What is a defining characteristic of you as 5 that you think might show up today? No, I know for myself, I was a big dreamer when I was young. I was winning the Rugby World Cup and the Soccer World Cup in my backyard as a 5-year-old. What's your sort of thing that you think comes through today?
You know what, man? This is so funny because there is a picture of me as a child, and I am probably, if not 5, I'm very close to 5. And it's my favorite picture that I've ever had taken of me. I was an absolute badass at 5 years old, and I wish that I could be that version of myself every single day. And to this day, I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan.
Nice.
But there's a story that my aunt, my mom's sister, she came down to visit us, and we were driving in the car, and I'm in the back seat. And of course, Born in the USA album came out the year that I was born, and my parents had the cassette. And my aunt tells the story of me sitting in the back of the car, and we're driving, and I'm like, Mommy, can we listen to Bruce? And I wasn't even old enough to be able to pronounce my R's, but I knew I wanted to listen to the boss. And I had this, my dad had taken this 2x4, and used a staple gun and stapled this like nylon piece of cloth to it. And that was my fake guitar. So I've got this like 4 foot long 2x4 with a nylon strap around it. And I'm just running around the yard playing that thing like it's my guitar. So there's this picture. I got my feet like far apart and I'm just jamming on this thing outside in the backyard. And I thought I was a rock star. And just that, to me, that just kind of captures that, like you said, that carefree, dreamer, passionate, fun version of yourself. And I think that's what I like to envision the 5-year-old version of me being. And I would love, and I do try to channel that into as much of what I do on a daily basis as I can today.
That's a powerful story, man. I love it. Changing tact a little bit. Am I correct in saying that when you were talking with Sean, you were saying that you do a little bit of a hunting? Is that correct?
I do. I am a hunter. I grew up. If I'm assuming most of your audience is based in New Zealand, but if folks are familiar with the U.S., on the eastern coast, we've got the Appalachian Mountains, and of course, the Appalachian Trail runs from Georgia all the way up to Maine. And where I grew up in southwestern Virginia, the Appalachian Trail was, it went through a few of my friends' backyard. You could see my high school from the trail. So I grew up in the mountains and was fortunate enough to be able to, learn hunting and fishing as a youngster, and did all that, growing up, and still enjoy getting outside in nature and interacting with the natural world as much as I can.
Nice. And so what does hunting mean for you? Because for me, I haven't been hunting for very long, about the last sort of 5 or 6 years, and I'm yet to have success in the wild as such. But I, like yourself, have a friend that has a farm with animals that graze on it. So it's good to go down there. But what is it about hunting?
Mm-hmm.
I just love getting away, challenging myself, and testing myself against nature, who's powerful.
Yeah, and you make some good points there. I mean, there are a lot of reasons that I'm drawn to now. As an adult, it is sort of getting away from the hustle and the busy, chaotic world that we live in now. It's a great way to unplug and de-stress and recharge, to just be able to get outside. And you have to be so focused and so present when you're I love walking through the woods and looking at the tracks and looking at the rubs and trying to figure out, okay, well, I know there are animals here, but which way are they moving and what times? And I'm a bow hunter, so for me to harvest an animal, I have to be within 30, maybe 40, 50 yards of this animal, which is completely different from say rifle hunting, where basically if you can see it, it's in range. So with a bow, there's a lot of strategy and a lot of patience, a lot of luck involved, and you've got to really get inside their minds and figure out where they're going to be, and then you've got to get there before they're, and do it in a way where you're undetected. So to me, there's a lot more sport and skill involved in bow hunting. I mean, even you can do all those things right, and the arrow can hit a tree or a branch that you don't see. I've had that happen before, and you miss the shot because if it was a bullet, it would not be deflected by a little twig or a branch, but an arrow might be. So there's a lot going on, at least for me, with bow hunting. And aside from the decompress and the de-stress with being in nature, I just find it a very satisfying, primitive, primal thing to know that I can go out, no matter what happens, I can go out and provide food for myself and my family. I know how to track an animal, I know how to get where it's going to be, and I can harvest it with a bow and arrow. I can skin it, I can butcher it, I can use every inch of that animal. And it's not about killing or trophies or pictures for Instagram. It's just something that I enjoy as a human. Absolutely.
It resonates very well with me too, mate. And it's great to see so many stories now about the true essence of hunting coming out. And like you say, it's not about photos or trophies. It's about a full, complete experience of being a human, and I love it. What are three non-negotiables for you, whether that's on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or each year? What are three things that you really like to lock in to maximize who you are?
That's a great question. I would say movement. It doesn't have to be lifting weights in the gym. That's probably one of the types of movement that I gravitate towards the most. But if I don't move every single day, even on a non-lift day, I want to do some yoga or paddleboard or at least walk, 5,000-10,000 steps. So movement is a non-negotiable. Sleep is another non-negotiable. I hate to bring that up because I feel like it's such a boring answer, and I feel like it's such a common answer. But at the same time, if I'm not getting that, 8 hours, going to bed at the right time, waking up at the same time every morning, I'm not the person that I want to be or need to be. So I would have to say that is one of my non-negotiables. And then I'll give you something that's a little bit different. This is, I would say, integrity. And that is one that it applies to us as individuals, but I think it's also something that, we can make sure, that's a non-negotiable for me in the people that I surround myself with, that I choose to collaborate with, work with, be involved with, projects that I get involved in. I think that integrity has to be there. I want to know that the other people are doing it for the right reasons as well. And if they're not, then, I think that's a great way to, sort of define your values and then use those as a compass or a screening tool to make sure that any relationship or collaboration or partnership that you enter into is one that will work for you for the long term.
Absolutely, and that's definitely something I felt that I've improved on with life. I know in my early 20s and going into university, I probably lost that. I was very much trying to appease other people, and you're right, when you don't have an integrity, you feel very empty, and changing that about myself has been great. You touched on sleep, and I've been putting up my sleep cycle the last little while, and it's been thoroughly interesting to see the ups and downs. What are some little tactics that you use in the evening to optimize that? You said about getting to bed at the right time and making sure you've got the sleep hours in, and Jocko Willink talks about if you want to get up early, go to sleep early, or just get up early and then you'll go to sleep early.
That's a great way to kind of start that cycle. I think in anything I do where I try to I try to reverse engineer things. I'll look at, if I'm scheduling my day, I'll look at, what I need to do or the things that are the appointments that are time based, right? So like we had this interview, it was at 11 a.m. for me. So, I knew I needed to do certain things prior to that. If I want to get 8 hours of sleep, every night, and if I get up at, let's say, just for easy math, let's say I get up at 8 a.m., then I have to be in bed by midnight, which I wouldn't recommend. I want to be in bed by 9 or 10 every night. So if I'm getting up at 6, the next day, I know, okay, let's work backwards. I have to be in bed by 10, which means that I'm going to avoid screens to the best of my ability and blue light, artificial light, for 90 minutes prior to that. So then I'm going to turn the TV off if it's on, or if I'm on the computer, I'm going to, shut all that down by 8:30 or 9 o'clock at the latest. Try not to look at my phone. We sleep best in a cold room, so take the temperature down. I think optimal is about 66 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere between 64 and 68. I'm not sure what that converts to in Celsius. Sorry, I'm an American.
It's all right.
And you can do the conversions for folks.
Yeah.
But, sleep in a cold, dark room, trying to avoid light, do things so sleep is a parasympathetic activity. And if we can do things prior to actually laying down that move us into parasympathetic states, we will be able to fall asleep faster and improve the quality of our sleep. So some of those activities could be breath work. It could be, a hot bath. Our bodies actually like to move from hot to colder. That promotes going to sleep. Reading a book. Most important things that we can do is develop our own sleep ritual. And it really doesn't matter what you choose to do, just that you do the same thing consistently. And the power, really the conditioning mechanism. So if you know somebody who always reads a book in their hand before they go to bed, you could put that person in a car or on an airplane and let them read a book, and they will probably fall asleep within 10 or 20 minutes. They're just conditioned to, when I read, it is time to go to sleep. So you can use that power of conditioning to, facilitate the habits that you want. In this case, better quality sleep.
Absolutely, and you spoke perfectly on a number of points. Firstly, falling asleep. It is very much about falling. It's not active. The blue light, and as an optometrist, we're always talking to people about blue light and the importance of sleep. What it does is it jacks up your serotonin. Serotonin and melatonin are competing hormones, and melatonin is that thing that helps you fall asleep. And so, exactly right, working backwards from when you're going to go to sleep and getting the screen away. And then the last one there was about reading a book and the parasympathetic nervous system. And we see the opposite in many people. They're so anxious and so jacked up that they can't focus up close, and they often need reading glasses. I think that's one of the reasons why so many of the farmers that I see in work don't need reading glasses, because they're just so relaxed and chilled out people being in nature all the time. But
Yeah.
when we treat kids that have reading difficulties with just no prescription in place, it's all about trying to get them to relax down, take deep breaths. We often find they're clenching their fists and they're tight and they're moving. And when we do that, all of a sudden it's a big change. And so if you're there relaxing, reading a book, you're going to fall asleep. And it's really simple to think about. If you're trying to run away from something, you don't want to be focused up close. You want to have your vision locked in the distance. So if you're in a state of fear, back to that fear, then you're not going to be able to read. You're not going to be able to fall asleep. So no, it's really cool. Now, mate, you're on the men's. Oh, you had a point there. Yeah, go for it.
No, it's just so cool how, when you look at the biology of, how this human body is designed, like it's designed so perfectly. And, when you understand those things, I talk a lot about some examples of that in the book. And, one that I didn't talk about and hadn't been aware of because I don't deal with eye health, but what you just mentioned is so cool. It's amazing to me how our body is designed to just to be this perfect machine that it really is.
No, absolutely. Cool, man. You're a men's health fitness counselor. What on earth does that mean?
I don't even know what it means, man. It means that I have some friends who've done some cool things and brought me along for the ride. Friend of mine used to be the editor at Men's Fitness and Muscle and Fitness. Just through some of the things that I did in the modeling days, along with writing for T Nation and Elite FTS, some of the larger websites. In the probably that time frame of like 2010 to 2000, maybe 13, I think, is when I was writing for those sites a lot, and just was fortunate enough to be recognized by the Men's Health Fitness Council, and was presented the opportunity to be a part of that, and I said sure. So it's more of a passive role. There's not a lot of active involvement, I am able to contribute from time to time to some articles or answer some questions, and provide guidance where I can. So it's a cool honor to be asked to be a part of that.
No, that's awesome, man. So the Better Human Project, mate. As I said, that's how we got on to Sean Baker, the Better Human Project.
Yep.
What is it? what impact is the Better Human Project looking to give people?
Yeah, so as I knew that I was going to step down as host of the Optimal Performance podcast, I knew I wanted to continue to podcast, and I was really fortunate to come into contact with a guy named Ryland Hormel. And Ryland is my co-founder at Better Human Project and partner. He is also the media guy for all things on the book side of what I'm doing. And, we just, he was a great sounding board and, provided a lot of information and input and feedback, as we were both trying to answer the question of, okay, if I'm stepping down from the OPP and continuing to podcast, how do I evolve as a podcaster? How do we move this thing forward, and open some doors to conversations that maybe would not have made sense on that previous show? We don't want any topic or any guest to be off limits. And the overriding theme of what fascinates me and what I'm passionate about is being a better human. And there are health and fitness or health and wellness. That's only one pillar of being a better human. We have business, we have relationships, we have so many different things that we can explore. There are a lot of social conversations that we can have in the climate that is surrounding us today. And we've got this ability now to interview anybody and talk about anything. And again, kind of talking about one of the lines of questioning that you brought up earlier in this show, it's one thing to do all of this self-development and self-mastery and grow and develop as a human. But if we're not using what we're building or developing in ourselves to make an impact or to help others, then why are we doing it? And, we wanted this show to be one that continued to provide people the tools to grow and evolve as an individual, but also to, provide the bridge from that to making a bigger impact in our communities and, helping as many people as we could. We are still trying to figure out how we can best make that impact that we want to make. The original thought was to put the show on Patreon, which was be a crowd-funded platform. And then we were going to take 50% of those funds and donate them to the charities of the guests that we featured on our show. And we will still have a charitable component. We will still be contributing to the research and the charities of the guests on our show. But we've taken the show off of Patreon for a few reasons. One, we found ourselves explaining that platform more than we were explaining what we were actually doing. And that was counterproductive to spreading our message and getting people involved with what we were doing. The other reason is that we don't see that as a sustainable, scalable revenue model. Essentially, we would be cyber begging for eternity. And we want to come up with a product that will provide a solution and better the lives of the people who listen to our show, so that they can purchase it. And then we can take that money, and with that money, then we're going to donate to, charities, research. And we're actually in conversations this week with an investment firm who they are a nonprofit impact investing firm, and they focus on educating entrepreneurs, providing them the tools that they need to succeed as small businesses. And they make huge impact in their communities. They've had 3 or 4 highly successful small businesses already. I think to date, the businesses that they've invested in have grossed over $12 million in, not in revenue, but that is the amount of money that they've paid people in wages. So when you say impact, I mean, that's a huge impact. So we originally had this idea to make our impact more environmentally focused. But depending on what we can work out with this group, we may actually be shifting our focus to um, empowering people and creating jobs and moving it in that direction. So, like I said, we're still trying to figure that out. And I think one of the most exciting things is that we have set this up in a way that, again, there's nothing that's off limits. There's nothing that doesn't make sense. So, we didn't know exactly how we were going to do it or what we were going to do, but we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves in to a certain thing. And we didn't want to create something that was too narrowed in or too focused and then couldn't pivot or expand. So we're still trying to figure out exactly how we can and how we will make this impact. So maybe in another few weeks, we'll be able to tell you exactly what the long-term plan is. But this is something that we see ourselves doing for 20, 30, 50 more years and really trying to make as big a difference in as many people's lives as we can.
It's powerful, mate. And you spoke about one of the challenges of social enterprises. Firstly, having to, like I say, justify why and how you're doing it. And then the second point about continually fundraising versus creating something that's scalable and growable and can create a greater impact rather than, like I say, in your case, virtual begging every episode. It's a really cool paradigm shift, which I think we're seeing. And our second episode with a social enterprise here in the Waikato, he's flipping that idea on its head. He's creating content, creating a model that means that businesses can invest in a purpose, see the rewards, and then share that sort of segment with their customers and with their investors, and create a snowball effect and like I say, scale things up and not just be a fundraiser that lives on this smell of an oily rag. You can actually grow and create massive impact. So that's really cool. I said there's Sean Baker, and I want to get your take on what it's like to live a carnivore lifestyle. What have you noticed, man? As I said when I spoke to him, it's a crazy first thought. What have you noticed, mate? And how did you go about starting?
Yeah, I probably had the exact same initial response as most people that, this thing is crazy. And for the first week after I initially heard about it, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I kept coming up with all of the reasons why it wouldn't work and all of the concerns that I had about eating that way. And I started following Sean Baker and several other people in that space on Twitter and other social media platforms. And, there was, for every objection that I could come up with, there was a highly educated individual with a compelling argument that would dispel that particular objection. And it was enough for me out of scientific curiosity to want to try this thing. And, I put some thought into it. And for the month of November last year, I did 35 straight days of strict 100% carnivore. At the end of it, I had my microbiome tested. I had my blood work tested. And, subjectively during the experience, the first 2 weeks were a struggle. And, had I not put it out there publicly that I was going to do it for the entire month, I may have walked away from the experiment. But once I got past that certain point, sort of the way I would describe it is the system comes online and, digestion became regular, a new version of regular, and energy just started going through the roof, very stable energy levels throughout the day. Hunger completely switched. I think it's a diet that regulates appetite, if for no other reason than it teaches you what real physiological hunger is. Because you've got to be hungry to cook and eat a steak. you can mindlessly eat nuts or, dried fruit or, whatever, but you have to be hungry to cook and eat, a steak. My strength went up. I was amazed at how good I felt. And to be honest, I didn't want to stop eating that way because of how great I felt, which was a shock to me. My blood work came back and I was very curious to see what it would look like. And it all looked great. We talked about all of those things in great detail. And I even put all my blood work online. When we had Sean Baker on episode 1 of Better Human Project. So, I'll try to avoid repeating so I don't sound like a broken record, but I mean, it was just, it was a fascinating experience, and I can't wrap my head around um, the belief that a carnivore diet is the optimal way for a human to live long term. There are no anthropological records of purely vegan or vegetarian societies. And likewise, there are no anthropological records of purely carnivorous societies. A lot of people will point to the Inuits as an example of that. But I think even those, they would have eaten berries or blueberries if they could have found them at certain times of the year. I think the point there is that I think humans throughout our history on this planet have been opportunistic feeders. The problem is what we have an opportunity to eat in 2018 is way different than it has ever been. For the last 100 years, 50 years, that has changed, and our lifestyle is at odds with our biology. And I think one of the reasons that the carnivore diet works as well as it does for as many people as it does is that it puts us more in alignment with an ancestral diet, or with a diet that fits our biology. So, I don't think that it is the way that I will eat for the rest of my life. Um, I just, I can't get away from my thought of humans being opportunistic feeders. But that being said, I still eat pretty close to carnivore, and I feel great doing it. So I'm trying to come to that balance point in my head of what I think I know and what the science says and how I feel when I'm doing it. So it's just something that really fascinates me.
Absolutely, likewise, and it's cool to get another perspective on it because it is, as you say, fascinating. What's another sort of thing that you enjoy doing or that you like doing that other people might find strange or quirky, and why do you do it?
I do a lot of weird things, man.
That's what I like about
I bet if you followed me around for a week, you'd probably come up with a list of all kinds of weird things. But because they're things I do, I don't really know what is weird and what isn't. It I realize that there are weird things when I'm around other people, and they're like, "Well, why do you do that? Why do you do that?" And I think one of the things I'll say, and this is probably becoming less and less weird, is I love cold water, cold exposure, cold showers, jumping in frozen ponds, cryotherapy. And again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with inoculating yourself to being uncomfortable. And there are a lot of physiological benefits to cold exposure. But when I do it, I'm really doing it for the psychological benefit of voluntarily subjecting myself to discomfort. And, when you doing that, there's not a lot of things that are going to happen the rest of the day that are as uncomfortable as walking into that cold shower. And, you get that first victory of the day. That, you set yourself up for, success by building momentum and, getting used to being uncomfortable.
Absolutely. I have the same mindset, mate. I jump in that shower and you get that sort of takeover of, oh crap, but you control your breath, you bring yourself back down, and it goes back to that parasympathetic nervous system touching on that and ignoring your sympathetic nervous system. And I find that the day you're just not reactive, you can breathe through anything, and you get home and you're a smiley, happy person. It's again, I couldn't recommend it enough. Last year I jumped in the lake in the middle of winter, and people were like, "What the hell was that?" No,
Yeah.
it was it's so good to hear another person talk about that in the same way, mate. The book's called "Fuck Your Feelings." Have you got it there?
Right here, man. Yeah.
That's awesome. In a world where, especially as guys, we're trying to be more in touch with our feelings, but in a different way to the feminine type of feelings. Why have you decided to name the book basically telling them to go fuck themselves?
Yeah, and you know, it is not what you think it is when you see that title. It's not about you know, being a stoic, or it's not about reverting to, you know, the 1950s version of a man who, you know, doesn't have feelings or doesn't communicate and is walled off or shut down. It's not that kind of you know, fuck your feelings. It is um, from a neuroscience standpoint. There's a neuroscientist who Antonio Damasio, who found that 95% of our decisions are made based on how we feel in any given moment. So this book is about learning how to control your feelings and in turn your decisions so that they don't direct you or control you. If we look at high performers, successful business people, Oprah, Richard Branson, look at Navy SEALs or Olympic athletes. These are people who over time have accomplished great things. And if we contrast their habits and how they deal with feelings and how they make decisions, we will see that they do the right thing at the
Mm,
right time, regardless of how they feel. Most people who have not learned to develop that fall into the category of non-high performers, or people who have not yet accomplished what they want to accomplish in life. So, you know, this book is a neuroscience based exploration of why some people succeed and other people don't. And it is a user's manual for the space between our ears so that we can master parasympathetic versus sympathetic, so that we can master that prefrontal cortex over the limbic system, so that we can become aware of these underlying biological processes, and, you know, in turn use that awareness to create choice, which, if we've defined our values like we just talked about before, then, you know, we can make decisions that are in alignment with the version of ourselves that we want to be and the goals that we have for our lives. You know, so that's why the book is called Fuck Your Feelings, and that's why I think it's going to change a lot of people's lives.
right, that's powerful. Now, you said it was the toughest day when you released the book. What was the feelings there, man?
Well, I guess maybe I should have been more clear in the way I wrote that. Not necessarily that day of releasing it, but the act of writing that book was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than building a business, harder than you know, anything that has come prior to this in my life. It was. Um, it took over a year to write it, and you know, there were days where I wanted to scream. There were days where many days where at the end of the day I was just shot and brain dead. And um, writing a book is it's a really difficult process, and it's very rewarding. I'm glad I did it, but you know, I can't lie and say that it wasn't difficult. So, you know, I think it was just, that post was just like, man, this was really hard, and I'm glad it's done, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. But you know, in terms of the day of releasing it, there was a lot of anxiety. I mean, there's this, you know, that creator in you is wondering, you know, how people are going to respond to this thing. And, you know, I know how much I put into this. So I want to make sure, or you'd like to believe that, you know, people are going to respond to it in a way that, you know, you want. And I just thought about, I think it's a quote from Seth Godin, and he just talks about, you know, you do the work, you step away from it, and you put it out into the world, and you know, you have to kind of separate yourself from that piece of work and just let it do its thing. And that's a hard thing to do. I'm still going to be actively involved in marketing it and promoting it, but at the same time to sort of try to disconnect from, that work is just work that I did. It's something I created, but it's not me. It doesn't define me. So trying to find that balance right now.
That's awesome. And another great person to verse says that if you're going to write a book, it's got to be more important to you to get it out there than keep it in your head. What was making you want to get it out there, mate? What were you seeing?
Yeah, I just, I've spent more than 10 years working in the world of transformation, whether that's been nutrition or personal training, strength coach, gym owning, and, through what I've gotten to do with Optimal Performance podcast and consulting with, high level athletes and entrepreneurs. It's all about our habits. It's how we spend our time. And it became very clear to me that those were the reasons that successful people had success, and the same reasons that people who didn't succeed were falling short of what they wanted to accomplish. And being able to talk to neuroscientists and researchers and really, really smart people, and then kind of taking that scientific and academic background and then line that up with the actual habits from these high performers. It just, there's a quote that I love: success leaves footprints. And this book is, here's the science, this is what's going on with our biology, and this is how successful people are navigating it, and here's how we can do that as well. And I just felt like that had to get out there because we see so much emphasis in the media world put on well, what's the best diet, what's the best way to train. And at the end of the day, if you don't have stuff right between your ears, it doesn't matter what diet you try or what training program you try or what business model you try. Again, this goes back to what we were saying earlier. The purpose here is to provide people the tools that they need to master their mind and accomplish any goal, and then in turn that helps become the most significant version of yourself that we can become.
Awesome. And it was probably a good topic to attack as a book, because the thing you're writing about is the thing that you're practicing. Am I right? What were some of the skills that you did to get this out in a year?
Yeah. So it is. This is right up my alley. It's what I'm passionate about. And, there were quite a few of the things that are in the book that I did implement to actually get the book out. And the cold showers on a regular basis were, one of them. There's about a 6-week period where all I did was write. And, my daily routine was wake up, take a cold shower, and get in front of the computer within 30 minutes. And then I set up Pomodoros, which is a productivity timing mechanism. You're nodding your head. You've heard about them. If people don't know, it's the Italian word for tomato timer. And it's 25 minutes of work with 5 minutes of rest. You repeat that for 4 cycles, which totals 2 hours. And then you take a 30-minute break, and then you repeat it. And the idea is that it prevents your brain from getting exhausted or being worn out. It's sort of like breaking a strength training workout. You wouldn't do one set of 100 pull-ups. You would break it down into higher number of sets with lower repetitions so that you don't hit fatigue or burnout. And it was just a way to make sure that the quality of my writing stayed high without going insane. So I think those were 2 of the things that I can think of off the top of my head that really helped me get this out.
That's awesome. No, I had heard of Pomodoro, and even back when I used to study for exams, I'd try implement that sort of timing and yeah, take that 2 hours to go do some training and get into a different headspace and come back to it. No, that's awesome. Mate, where can people find you, man? I found you, I think, on Instagram and the podcast, and now I've looked at your website. Where do people find those places, man?
Yeah, those are the best places to go. The podcast is Better Human Project, and it has its own website. It is betterhumanproject.org. And if you want to follow me on social, it is Ryan Munsey _ on Instagram. That's the social platform that I use the most. I think it's the one that I'm happiest on. My website is ryanmunsey.com. And of course, the book is on Amazon. There's a Kindle and a paperback version, and we are working on the audiobook now. I'm an audiobook person. So if people listening are audio book fans, I'm sorry, we're getting it out there as fast as we can, because that's how I would want to consume it as well. So Amazon is the book, and I'll get you a link to that if you want to put it in the show notes, Ryan.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's just go to Amazon and type in Ryan Munsey or type in "fuck your feelings" and it'll pop up.
Wicked, mate. What's something that you can leave us with? Maybe something you live your life by, or a great quote that comes to mind in a tough time, or just through the book. What's something that you really love people to know about?
You know, as soon as you said quote, I had a few pop into my head. And one of those mentors that I mentioned back in 2012 is a great friend and huge impact on my life. His name is Paul Reddick. And he told me and a group of other guys, um, your life is perfectly designed for the results that you are currently getting.
That's awesome.
And that is just so super powerful. Your life is perfectly designed for the results that you are currently getting. And I love it because it puts the responsibility on us. If you're having success, if you're getting what you want, then it's because of the things that you're doing. It's because of your habits. It's because of the way you have intentionally set up what you do. If you're not getting the results that you want, same reason. It's on you. It's because of the way you spend your time and what you've been doing. And if you want something different, then we need to do something different with how we spend our time and what we do. So that would be the quote that I would want to leave everybody with.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Hugely appreciate you coming on the show, and hopefully we can get you a few sales of Fuck Your Feelings in New Zealand, man. That'd be so awesome. I'll be.
That would be super. I'm grateful for the opportunity to chat with you and share, you know, this book and what we're doing with everybody. And man, somebody just bought the book in Germany the other day. So I'm loving seeing the global spread of the book. So if we can get some in New Zealand, that'd be super.
Awesome, mate. Thanks so much again. Cheers.
All right.